the US House of Representatives has voted through the euphemistically called Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, which would essentially ban TikTok and the freedom of 170 million TikTok users to express themselves. It would prohibit the distribution, maintenance or updating of TikTok or another designated app controlled by a foreign adversary within 180 days of the bill's enactment, unless there's a qualified divestiture. Very complicated. I'm joined now by former Republican Congressman and political pundit John Le Boutillier. Thank you for making time for us this evening, John.
Thanks for having me. It's a very important topic and one of the few things in America that has united both Republicans and Democrats.
And why is that? I know I'm aware of the fact that the bill has been around Washington for a number of years. Why the sudden bipartisan support at this moment in history?
Well, first of all, it's only in the House of Representatives. The U.S. Senate hasn't taken this up yet, so we don't know that this will ever become law. But it did pass the House 2 weeks ago overwhelmingly in both, as I said, both parties supported it. And why? First of all, the evidence is clear that the Chinese Communist Party gathers information from the users of TikTok. And this is very alarming in the United States. I'm sure it's alarming in Great Britain, too. The idea that an adversary of the United States has the personal information of a third of the country's users, and especially young ones, and they can use that to do AI manipulated fake news as we head into an election year. It's extremely worrying.
Can I just jump in at that point, John? Isn't it true, though, that the same data is readily harvested by all social media platforms, Facebook, Google, X, and so on, and it's all freely available for sale on the open market? In what way is TikTok able to harvest directly anything that isn't freely available to in the marketplace anyway?
Well, I don't know that the communist Chinese aren't getting the same information from Facebook, say Meta. Maybe they are, but they're definitely getting it because they own ByteDance, which owns a TikTok. And so when you sign up and fill out the stuff, it all goes to Beijing, for God's sakes. We know that. And it allows Beijing to come back through TikTok and manipulate. A third of America is watching stuff that could be produced in Beijing using AI and could be used to manipulate the elections this November.
John, I know that...
Just the name Red China. I mean, the public doesn't hate Facebook and Instagram the way they hate the Chinese Communist Party.
I'll take that at face value, John, but I have to say that US intelligence has produced no evidence that TikTok has ever coordinated with Beijing. And when asked recently for evidence of TikTok's actual threat, an FBI spokesman said, "We have nothing to add." Despite all the speculation about Chinese propaganda, the FBI and others have not been able to point to anything specific and say, there it is.
Well, something clearly has motivated almost 400 members of the House out of 432, so I have a few vacancies at the moment, to vote for this bill. So it's a very popular bill, but it's not the law yet. So we'll see. And maybe senators will ask these questions that you've raised. But I don't think you're going to find any doubters that when in doubt, assume the worst out of Beijing.
What about the fact that it is Generation Z, it's Gen Z that use it, it's young minds that are interested in TikTok. And since October 7th, many of those youngsters are sharing information about how unhappy they are with what's happening in Gaza and what's happening to Palestinians, calling for an end to the war there. It's not the timing that since October the 7th, TikTok has provided a platform for young Americans, young Jewish Americans among them, to make plain that they're not happy with what the state of Israel is doing in Gaza. You don't think that timing is more than coincidental?
Well, except that of the 380 or some odd numbers of members of the House that voted for this bill, there were people who were pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian who voted for it. I don't think that's the issue that motivated. I think it's Red China and the Chinese Communist Party that is the one thing that can unify an otherwise divided political scene in the House of Representatives.
Bear with me, John, while I also invite my guest in the studio, Frank Furedi, to be involved. What do you make of what John is saying? Very strong on how much opposition there is to Red China in the United States of America.
I think there is, and I think that Red China serves as a conduit for uniting disparate forces for a very simple reason, that there seems to be a real concern about Chinese competition, about the ascendancy of China in a number of areas, the fact that China alone is the only economic entity that can seriously compete with the United States. And I think that kind of concern has consolidated over the last few years. And it's probably the main reason. It's rather than intelligence or manipulation or brainwashing, I think it's Chinese economic power that's at the roots of this discussion. And I think that's why we have a situation where both sides of the House have come together on this one single issue.
John Labatilier, thank you very much for being with us this evening. The clock has beaten us, tick-tock, as they say.